serving the Republic of the Philippines for more than 75 years. Ito po ang Presidential Broadcast Service.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang, and here are the news. On the top story, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday directed the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, to continue streamlining the country's drug regulatory processes with the aim of lowering the prices of true generic drugs and speeding up the process of registering new common drugs. In a sectoral meeting, President Marcos also directed the FDA and the Department of Agriculture, or DA, to address the issues of work delegation in order to approve the necessary drugs for avian and African swine flu, or ASF. The chief executive expressed the urgency of veterinary vaccines as this may affect the country's agriculture and nutrition needs. President Marcos also encouraged the establishment of a farm zone to make the drug application process more accessible and efficient, like a one-stop shop, and directed the said agencies to focus on amending the Administrative Order 67 from 1989 to look into allowing foreign common drugs to come in, with the intention of bringing prices down for all Filipinos. In a press briefing after the meeting with President, FDA Director General Dr. Samuel Zakari said that the agency had already formulated a number of policies that would help stakeholders, including extending the validity to operate certificate of product registration from the initial 3-year and 5 years renewal. It will now be increased to 5 years initial and 10 years renewal.
I'd like to confirm that the President has directed the Food and Drug Administration to further streamline the drug application process in the Philippines and to provide further drug accessibility for all the Filipinos. And in the future, the cheaper medicine for us to be accessible also to the Filipino people. As of now, in the FDA, we already had formulated several policies para po makatulong sa ating mga stakeholders. And one of that is the Bible of the drug application process, which is the Administrative Order number 67. It will pave the way for the application per category so that the stakeholders, the local drug manufacturers and the drug importers will have the proper way of how to register their products. Furthermore, we are already having the policies to lengthen the validation or the validity of the license to operate and the certificate of product registration from the initial 3 years to 5 years renewal. And now it will be increased to 5 years initial and 10 years renewal. It will help further the stakeholders to the stakeholders for the drug to further their business interests and to strengthen the drug accessibility in the country. Another is that we are doing the revision of fees for us to be capacitated so that our laboratory and testing abilities will be further and be at par with the other international regulation. Another is that we tackled in a sectoral meeting the possibility or the establishment of the pharma zones. So ano po ang importansya po nito? It will give a more drug accessible to those selected 3 pharma zones by the PAZA. So it will have a role, the FDA will have a role so that pagpasok po ng isang gamot, diretso testing, diretso registration para po magkaroon po ng mabilis at malaki ang lawak ng coverage. Especially those essential medicines like for example the generic drug and the antibiotics that has been approved by the stringent regulatory authority of the different countries. Aside from that, I would like also to confirm that we already talked with the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, Secretary Laurel, that we will have the JAO, the Joint Administrative Order, so that the veterinary vaccines, no, kung alam nyo po kasi it has greatly affected the meat industry, the supply of the meat industry in the country, especially the pork. So one of the solution of that is that we give the Filipino people, the stakeholder for the veterinary, yung mga agricultures natin, the vaccine, the technology to stop the proliferation of the ASF and also the avian flu. To another projects that the FDA is being entailed is the full digitalization, so that the agency will have more application process on time. So we already have talks with the DICT and also the ARTA, the Anti-Rape Authority, to have established the one-stop shop. It will help greatly the stakeholders of drug pharmaceutical industry. Thank you.
Food and Drug Administration Director General Dr. Samuel Zacate.
Dateline Malacañang.
In related news, the Philippine Department of Agriculture, or DA, urged foreign suppliers of African swine fever, or ASF, vaccines to secure an approval from the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, as there are government processes they need to follow. DA Undersecretary Roger Navarro, in a palace press briefing, said the DA spoke with suppliers on the sidelines of the Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s visit to Vietnam last month. The challenge, however, remains even with the suppliers expressing intent to supply to the Philippines. For Vietnam-made vaccines to be commercially distributed in the country, the FDA must first issue a Certificate of Product Registration, or CPR, to suppliers following accreditation, testing, and approval procedures. In June 2023, the DA Bureau of Animal Industry recommended the AVAC vaccine from Vietnam for the issuance of CPR following positive results of its trial in Luzon. The testing was conducted in 6 areas in Luzon from March to May 2023, with 100% production of antibodies and no reported side effects among 4 to 10-week-old hogs.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. directed the Department of Agriculture, or DA, to look for ways to manage the stability of supply and prices of basic commodities in view of the effects of the El Niño phenomenon, which is expected to persist until May 2024. In a press briefing after a sectoral meeting with the President, the DA assured the public that the supply of rice, corn, pork, and sugar, among other daily necessities, remains sufficient. For rice, DA Undersecretary Roger Navarro said that in order to maintain the ample supply of the food staple, the country still needs to import rice of some 330,000 metric tons per month.
For rice, for example, at least we need an importation volume of something like 330,000 metric tons per month, with an average daily consumption of about 37 metric tons per day. And we have a production of rice form, which is already about 13,000. So we need a balance of 2.8 or 2.6 million that we need to import from other countries. Normally, traditionally, we imported like 3.8 million metric tons from other ASEAN countries. And as to date, we already imported from January to now something like 590,000 metric tons, which is more than what we need for this month. So with the coming production, come March until April, May, June, so we will have an ample supply for rice.
Department of Agriculture, or DA Undersecretary Roger Navarro.
Dateline Malacañang.
On its seventh day of search and rescue operations for victims of the landslide in Masara, Davao de Oro province, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, on Tuesday said that it is all hands on deck in the country's human assistance and disaster relief, or HADR, operations. In a joint press briefing, AFP spokesperson Colonel Francel Margaret Padilla said the Air Force, the Army, and the Navy is in Davao to give relief and rescue operations a boost. For its part, Philippine Air Force, or PAF, spokesperson Colonel Maria Consuelo Castillo said the Air Force has deployed a number of assets to help in the operations, including C-130 and C-295 airlifters doing the airlifting of cargo, specifically family food bags from the Philippine Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, and donated relief goods.
From the Air Force side, right now we have committed 6 types of aircraft for these operations. Now we have 505 search and rescue helicopters. We have the UH-1H and the S-76 aircraft doing relief operations as well as evacuation of personnel. And at the same time, we have aircraft from the 205th Tactical Helicopter Wing. We have our Black Hawk helicopters deployed, as well as our Belfour 1-2 combat utility helicopters, which are dedicated for airlift missions and for relief operations. And then for our airlifters, we have C-130 and C-295 doing the airlifting cargo. Usually it comes from Manila, yung mga nagdo-donate ng relief goods. And of course, this is in tandem with, as mentioned a while ago, with the help of our allies. There are 2 C-130s. As of yesterday, they have already hauled around 80,000 pounds of cargo, family relief packs. And the airlifting of relief goods continues today by noon. By noon today, our C-130s from the United States will continue to airlift relief goods going to Davao area.
Meanwhile, Naval Public Affairs Office Director Captain Benjo Negranza said surface assets were used to deliver relief goods to areas that are hard to reach due to impassable roads.
So the Philippine Navy supports the overall efforts of the Armed Forces of the Philippines together with the other government agencies. We have the Naval Forces Eastern Mindanao helping in the overall efforts. As stated, some of the roads are impassable, so some of the assets deployed in Naval Forces Eastern Mindanao were used to transport essential food packs, essential items that came from other government agencies. So it's a coordinated and collaborative effort. So nakatulong po sir yung surface assets natin in delivering these much needed relief food packs kasi some of the roads were impassable. So nakarating po ng kanilang narating ng surface assets natin yung mga identified areas where we can unload para makarating din po dun sa mga parang naipit na stranded just because of the impassable roads. And patuloy po yung coordination namin ng aming naval forces po doon to help with the overall efforts in the affected areas.
Philippine Navy Public Affairs Office Director Captain Benjo Negranza.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. met United States Ambassador Mary Kay Carlson in Malacañang on Tuesday. During their meeting, the president expressed his gratitude to the United States government for extending emergency assistance to those affected by the recent flooding and landslides in Mindanao. Ambassador Carlson told President Marcos that the United States was always ready to help the Philippines. In fact, two C-130 from the Indo-Pacific Command or Indo-PACOM were used to airlift relief goods in the Davao region. She added that teams from the U.S. Agency for International Development or USAID, Joint United States Military Advisory Group or JUSMAG, and Indo-PACOM coordinated with the Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD for the delivery of relief supplies. Carlson highlighted the value of the Philippine-U.S. alliance, citing the successful delivery of much-needed aid to the people of Mindanao. Besides the two U.S. C-130s, the U.S. government has also extended $1.25 million in emergency support. The chief executive for his part cited the importance of Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA sites for disaster relief and response and encouraged Ambassador Carlson in Washington to make full use of those facilities. Last week, Ambassador Carlson and U.S. Department of State Undersecretary for Economic Growth, Energy and Environment Jose Fernandez met with Finance Chief Ralph Rector to discuss strategic ties between the two countries. In a statement, the Department of Finance or DOF said that Undersecretary Fernandez underscored areas of interest for the United States, particularly critical minerals, semiconductors, and energy security. The finance chief, for his part, expressed the Philippines' enthusiasm in collaborating on the said sectors, urging the United States to further strengthen the trade partnership between the two nations in order to diversify supply chains and enhance economic resilience. Besides Ambassador Carlson and Undersecretary Fernandez, U.S. State Special Assistants Laura Russ and C.J. Johnson and key officials from the U.S. Embassy in Manila joined the meeting.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippines Department of Agriculture or DA and the Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD suggested to President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. that instead of giving financial assistance to beneficiaries of the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program or 4Ps, the government should give them rice. In a press briefing, DA Undersecretary Roger Navarro said that the rice will be provided by the National Food Authority or NFA, so that the beneficiaries would not have to buy rice from markets or more expensive rice. The DA Undersecretary added that 20% of vulnerable poor families in the country under the DSWD's 4Ps will be spared of the burden of price pressures in the market in terms of buying high-priced rice. According to Navarro, this could also slow down the country's inflation and eventually lower the price of rice in the market. Undersecretary Navarro said that President Marcos is carefully studying the recommendation and as to how this can be implemented.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippines Department of Migrant Workers or DMW assured the public that the agency is already investigating the complaint of a modus that offers potential victims of student visas bound for Canada and potentially working there. Based on the complaint of an overseas Filipino worker or OFW in Hong Kong, a certain Nina Mabatid offered them to apply for a student visa to Canada, work there, and eventually petition their families. DMW Undersecretary Bernard Olalia said that Mabatid is a former councilor of Cebu City. Among those promised by Mabatid is that they will give the applicant a 1 million peso loan as show money, but the victim does not know of the many requirements needed and the difficulties in processing their applications. In a Senate hearing on Tuesday, Olalia explained that based on Canada's immigration policy, the student visa offered by Mabatid is not qualified. The DMW said that they have already sent a team to Hong Kong to gather testimonies and provide assistance to the victims. The Migrant Workers Office, or MWO, is also coordinating with the Hong Kong government on the process of having Mabatid to answer for the said modus. Olalia added that They are collaborating with the National Bureau of Investigation or NBI and have filed cases of estafa and illegal recruitment against Mabatid. Undersecretary Olalia said that the DMW is also coordinating with Facebook to take down the post of Mabatid and its company with regards to the student visa to Canada modus.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine government is eyeing a number of fresh approaches to stop online sexual abuse and exploitation of children, or OSEAC. In a media briefing on the occasion of Safer Internet Day 2024, the Philippine Department of Justice, or DOJ, spokesperson Assistant Secretary Miko Clavano said among the measures being studied is working with money services businesses, or MSBs, to flag amounts used to transfer subscription and purchase online footage and steal photos of abused minors. The Philippine Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, under Secretary Emeline Villar, said they are also working closely with social media platforms to tweak their systems via artificial platforms to curb access to potentially harmful sites and content. The officials said social media platforms including Meta and TikTok are taking part in the ongoing discussions to stamp out such contents. Clavano said the adjustments are needed as the threshold amounts in the Anti-Money Laundering Act are substantially higher than the amounts usually transacted in OSEAC-related online transactions, which can go as low as 50 pesos per photo. According to studies, consumers of the forbidden content are mostly males from the United States, Europe, and Australia. Clavano also said talks are being held with remittance and virtual wallet platforms. DOJ Secretary Jesus Crespin Remulla said the government is waging an all-out war against online abusers. Remulla commended the National Coordination Center Against Online Sexual Abuse or Exploitation of Children and Child Sexual Abuse or Exploitation Materials, NCC or SAEC, CSAEM, and other public and private partners for spearheading the successful commemoration of the Safer Internet Day this year. He then renewed the department's commitment to go after cyber predators and protect Filipinos in the digital sphere. Proclamation 417, signed by former President Rodrigo Duterte in 2018, declared the second Tuesday of February of every year as Safer Internet Day for Children Philippines to serve as a living reminder that each and everyone must take part and protect children from all forms of abuse and exploitation and create a safer cyberspace. The NCC OSAEC CSAEM is a substructure of the Interagency Council Against Trafficking, which is chaired by Remulla and with DOJ Undersecretary Nicolas Felix T. as Undersecretary in charge.
Dateline Malacañang.
An official of the Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, said the Philippine government continues to uphold a policy of assertive transparency on the actions of the Chinese government in the West Philippine Sea, or WPS. During a panel discussion organized by Strat-based ADR Institute, PCG Special Staff to the Commandant, Commodore J. Tariela, said releasing information on the Chinese aggression in the WPS has been more institutionalized, but their transparency initiative largely remained the same. Tariela said the de-escalation agreement between the two countries during the 8th Bilateral Consultation Mechanism, or BCM, in Shanghai on January 17 has not been a setback, as transparency is not something that is provocative or escalatory. He highlighted the recent altercation between the PCG and the China Coast Guard, or CCG, where Chinese boats crossed the bow of BRP Teresa Magbanwa, a violation of International Collision of Regulation, or the Convention on the International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea. However, he said the information released to the public is now more institutionalized, as they now need to go through the Information Working Group, or IWG, of the National Task Force West Philippine Sea, NTF-WPS. The IWG is composed of the Department of National Defense, Armed Forces of the Philippines, Department of Foreign Affairs, Department of Justice, National Security Council, and PCG. Once the IWG has processed the information, he said the decision to release it will be made by the NTF-WPS and National Security Advisor Secretary Eduardo Año. On Sunday, the PCG reported an encounter with the CCG while BRP Teresa Magbanwa was on a 9-day patrol in Bajo de Masinloc. Aside from crossing the bow of the Philippine vessel, Chinese vessels shadowed the PCG 40 times and blocked their ship 4 times. The Philippines and China convened the BCM following an agreement between President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and Chinese President Xi Jinping to ease and manage tensions in the WPS.
Dateline Malacañang.
Finally, for Dateline Malacañang, the Philippines has donated $100,000 or approximately 5.5 million Philippine peso to support Myanmar's recovery efforts from Cyclone Mocha that battered the country in May 2023, according to the Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA. The DFA said the donation, turned over on February 6 to the ASEAN Secretariat, is to show Manila's solidarity with the people of Myanmar. Philippine Permanent Representative to ASEAN, Jayceline Quintana, said, "Our collective expertise can contribute to the development of sustainable recovery strategies and the strengthening of our region's disaster response capabilities." Quintana handed over the donation to ASEAN Secretary General Dr. Kao Kim Horn in his capacity as ASEAN Humanitarian Assistance Coordinator or AHAC. Kao recognized Manila's staunch support for disaster management and humanitarian assistance in Southeast Asia. The ceremony was witnessed by Ambassador Ong Myo Myint, Permanent Representative of Myanmar to ASEAN, and officers of the Philippine Mission and the ASEAN Secretariat. Cyclone Mocha was one of the strongest cyclones to hit Myanmar when it made landfall in Rakhine State on May 14, 2023. Its wind speeds, which reached more than 250 kilometers per hour, affected about 1.23 million, the majority of whom were among the most impoverished in Myanmar, suffering years of conflict, displacement, and economic marginalization.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Bea Gaza.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.